Well, welcome everybody. Tampa Bay Developer Podcast, episode 5, here today with Robby D'Angelo. Welcome, Robby.
How you doing, my man?
Good, man. Good, man. So you mentioned a couple words and I already forgot them. Not a life coach, not a men's coach, but...
Yeah, so the world I work in is mental optimization. I do mental optimization for individuals, and I also do that inside of companies with their human capital.
Okay. Interesting. Mental optimization. So how to think more efficiently. It's
definitely efficiency and effectiveness. And in this industry, you hear a lot of mental performance coaches. And performance is a big key word in this industry. But my problem with that is I don't always want you performing. Performing is a grind. It's a push. And you have to tap into this like willpower. And it's almost forced a little bit sometimes. But at the same time, if you're always performing, you're going to reach that point where you're burning out.
Right.
So I like to optimize your mind for whatever situation you're in, whether it be, hey, let's put on our big boy pants and go to work today, and let's be in that performance mentality. But then how do I turn that off and go be with my wife and kids? How do I turn that off at the end of the day and actually be able to reward myself with all the hard work that I just put in? So that's why I like using the word optimization, because it's not always about performance.
Right.
It's about what mindset do I need to be in for the situation I'm in.
Interesting. I feel like I deal with a lot of some of those negative thoughts with my business. I'm a real estate broker. I've got agents under me, and it's a tough grind. There's obviously a lot of competition. There's a ton of real estate agents here in Florida, but specifically Tampa.
Yes.
And sometimes things don't move as quick as I want them to move, and I'll come home at the end of the day feeling like, what am I doing chipping away at this huge iceberg? Like I accomplished nothing. So you almost train people to rethink about their day and feel good about the hard work they're putting in.
100%. Like a big thing in my practice is priming the day. So at the beginning of the day, priming your mindset to go out there and slay the dragon, like be the warrior. But then let's also be able to flip that switch at the end of the day and be able to turn it off.
Yeah.
You know, there's one of the things that I get my clients to understand is there's a real peace that happens when I just won the day. Like when I gave everything I have to my mission goals and objectives of the day, there's a like just fulfilling, peaceful feeling when you're able to say, okay, I won today. I can turn it off and go enjoy my family, or I can enjoy, going to a restaurant tonight. Like I don't have to think about work because I just kicked ass today. I did everything I needed to do, and I'm okay being able to turn that off.
I feel like everyone knows that feeling. Everyone knows what it feels like when you're lazy and you slack off and you're relaxed and you've done nothing all day. You feel like shit. You know what I mean? You just feel like, ugh, what did I do today? I accomplished nothing. And then the days where you get home and the sun's already set, you feel like you've accomplished all this stuff. You're like, oh man, that was tough, but it was worth it. I feel good.
Yeah, there's actually one of my favorite quotes is a Vince Lombardi quote. And I think that sums it up perfectly. He said, I firmly believe that any man's finest hour is that moment he lays on the field of battle completely exhausted, yet victorious. That is man's finest hour. And it speaks to what you're talking about. Like that is just part of the human condition, the human psychology is we love progress. And we love making progress and the feeling of knowing that we're progressing towards something. Not necessarily achieving a result, but just making the progress. So when we can bust our butt, give everything we have, and have that feeling you're talking about at the end of the day, like that's the good stuff. That's what we're here to do.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right. When we don't do it, a lot of the entrepreneurs and business owners I work with, most of their anxiety comes in when they didn't do that.
Right.
Like, if you've given 100% to something, that anxiety level, yeah, you may still have fires to put out, but you went for it today.
Right.
And that anxiety, it may still be there, but it's not nearly the intensity of, I procrastinated the day, or I spent too much time on Instagram today, and I didn't do the things I needed to do. Now that anxiety is a level 10.
Do you often, I'm sure most of the people you work with are business owners and entrepreneurs, but how does this mindset equate to someone who just has that, like a 9-to-5? Maybe it's a good 9-to-5. Maybe they make good money, but it's redundant work. It's something you go to work every day and you do the same thing over and over again. You're not necessarily building something. You're not necessarily an entrepreneur. How does that person have that same mindset?
Right. One of the things that I get anyone to understand in that position is you may not own the company, but you're still an entrepreneur. And what I mean by that is you don't own the company, you own your role. You own your job. And you still have to look at it the same way. And there's this big thing that I think is missing right now in society. It's called integrity. And being able to own your job, do the best you can. And once again, that feeling of I did my job to the best of my ability. Yeah, it may be mundane, it may be repetitive, but one of my early mentors told me, is like, Robby, look, I don't care if I'm flipping hamburgers. I'm going to be the best damn hamburger flipper there is. Because, you know, my word that I'm obsessed with is undeniable. I want to create so much undeniable for the company that I'm working for that they have no choice but to see that and then promote me or give me more responsibility, which requires more pay. Like that's where advancement comes in when you make yourself undeniable. So it's still the same concept, that what we're talking about is the perspective difference.
Right. And I think a lot of people too, you know, even if you are working that 9 to 5 and you're doing the same thing day after day, you can find satisfaction in that. A lot of people that are stuck in that, oh, I want to start this and I want to start that. If you're in a good spot and you're making a good amount of money and it's a steady job, there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you can figure out that mental piece. And that's where you come in.
100%. Like I was speaking last weekend at a conference for medical professionals. And yeah, it was the doctors, it was the owners, but a lot of their staff was in there too. And like, okay, you don't own the practice. You're not the doctor of the practice. Maybe you're the front desk person, or maybe you're just like the doctor's assistant. But what does that job do? That job helps sick people. You're changing lives.
Right.
Like that's the mission you have to buy into. One of my favorite jobs I ever worked was I did some consulting at USAA Insurance. And okay, like everybody I worked with was not the owner of the company, but their passion for what they did for a living, because yes, they're in financial services, not like the most like thing that you can wrap your head around as far as passion goes, but they could get passionate about who they were serving. Like, hold on, we're serving our military.
Right.
That's providing me the freedom to even do this job. So it's finding that mission that you can get passionate about inside of what you do. And it may be the customers that you're helping, because I don't care who you are, what job you do, everyone's in the people business. And
so true.
The only way business exists is if you exchange value. You exchange your services or product for the customer's value. And that customer only exchanges that value when they're getting benefit from that and you're making their life better, or you're solving a problem for them. So you can wrap your mission around that you're making someone's life better or you're solving a problem for somebody. And that's what you can get motivated about.
Burger King versus Chick-fil-A. You know what I mean? You roll up to a Chick-fil-A, that high level of service, they all have great attitudes. When you leave a Chick-fil-A, you're like, I feel a little good. Sometimes leaving Burger King, it's like, oh, geez, man, that was a nightmare.
And you can tell the difference in the quality of the product.
Exactly.
You can tell the difference in like
it translates throughout the whole business. Right.
It goes back to that culture thing. And that's why mission and leadership are so important to influence the culture. And that's why like you have to have your team buy in to that mission, because without that, they're not going to care about the quality of what they're putting out. They're going to be there to collect a paycheck.
Exactly.
And that's the worst kind of employee.
Exactly. Yeah. I try to preach that a lot to my people here is look, at the end of the day, you're helping people buy and sell homes. It's the most important decision a lot of people are making in their lives. It's so much more than collecting a commission. It's a relationship. You're in these people's bedrooms. It's a very, very personal relationship you have. Become friends with these people. Take them out to dinner. Be nice to them, and it'll pay off big time. They'll tell their friends about you. They'll have their family members work with you. So it's super, super important. How did you get involved in this business?
So I started out, actually when I first graduated college, I went into investment services. I worked for a broker. And then at the same time, I had just lost over 100 pounds. So that kind of started my journey into coaching, because you lose 100 pounds in a year and people naturally ask you, bro, how did you do it? Like, how'd you lose so much weight?
How did you do it?
I didn't eat like an asshole.
Yeah. No one wants to hear the answer, right? But
that dirty word called discipline. Yeah, that's how I did it. There are no secrets to it. Like, losing weight is a simple equation of calories in versus calories out. And there's tons of different paths to get there, just like business. There's a ton of ways to make money. but you still have to do the fundamentals.
Right.
As I was, working in corporate America, I would take on these coaching clients and I would just help them lose weight. And then from there, I was still coaching on the side, but I transitioned into commercial real estate and did that for about 7 years. And I really learned a lot doing that. But I was coaching the entire time. And my last year doing commercial real estate, on the side, I actually published my first best-selling book. And that's when that transition out of that happened, which is a crazy story. But once that transition happened, I went full-time into coaching. But the transition I made there was, okay, like health coaching, and not to put down any health coaches because, look, I have a health coach. But I got tired of writing diets and exercise programs people didn't follow.
Right.
I'm like, okay. And even today, like when somebody asks me like, hey, how do you stay in shape? How do you lose weight? I'm like, let me ask you this. Do you know what to eat? Like, do you know that you shouldn't be eating McDonald's every day?
Yeah. What's healthier, broccoli or Skittles?
Yeah, people know these answers.
Right.
Okay, so if you know that, and you also know that you probably aren't going to lose weight sitting on your couch watching Netflix for 4 hours every night. Like, you should be moving more. So if you know those two things, then why aren't you doing them? So that kind of propelled me into learning psychology and philosophy and just really like how to change the way humans make decisions.
Interesting. Was there something you read, a book, watched a seminar that clicked with you that made you think, wow, it's all about optimizing the way you think, or was this something you've kind of built over time?
It was definitely something that evolved. But at the same time, I'll tell you this, most of what I do now comes from me fixing my own crap. For example, like I was a fat kid growing up my entire life, and I lost 100 pounds, but didn't solve any of the mindset issues that I had.
Yeah.
I was still the fat kid inside. So even for myself, I looked better, but I didn't feel any better. I was still struggling with depression and anxiety even after losing 100 pounds. So everything that I do now started with me going on my own journey first, and then realized like, oh man, hold on. This inner journey, that's the good stuff. Like this is what people need to go on because the exterior is only a reflection of the interior. So let's fix the interior and the exterior will reflect it.
What's the first step, Robby? Like you losing those 100 pounds, obviously aside from, okay, I'm sick of being the fat kid, right? That's the obvious first step.
Right.
But what is something that someone can have inside themselves where they think, you know what? I'm going to be disciplined. I'm going to lose the weight. Like, let's go for it. So for you, what did that look like when you decided to lose those 100 pounds?
So it's a combination of two things that start any real journey in your life. The first thing is clarity. Like, what do I really want? Because if you just start on a weight loss journey and you have no clue about an end destination or you have no goal, you're probably not going to get there.
Right.
Like, a GPS only works with a destination. So clarity is the first step. Like, what do I really want? And then the other part of that clarity is, why do I want this? That why thing that Simon Sinek always talks about, which a lot of people get wrong because they make it very surface. It's not something like, to me, a why is only important once you have a why that's strong enough where when you think about it, like it almost brings you to tears. That's when a why is really your why.
Right.
And for some people, it's solving a problem. Some people, it's for their family. Like whatever it is, like whatever that strong emotional attachment is for you, that's what you got to lean on because you got to have the clarity to know where you're going. But then you also have the fuel to get you there.
Right.
Which is that why.
That's kind of where your motivation comes from. Like we talked earlier about, there's a lot of stuff online right now about rah-rah motivation and, you got to have the grit and you got to grind and you got to do this and you got to do that. But at the end of the day, you're going to lose that edge and you're going to burn out, like you said, if you don't have that why. If someone's kind of searching for that why, how do you find it?
You go to undeniablewhy.com.
There you go.
That's my free download for that.
Pull that up, Tyler, just so I can see it while we're talking.
So first of all, you have to like really figure out, it almost lies at the intersection of your curiosity. Like what, and I always joke when I say this, but like what 3 things do you search for the most on the internet?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Excluding porn. Like what 3 things do you search for the most on the internet? Like what drives your endless curiosity?
Right.
And then what's a problem that you always get fired up solving? Like where do you always...
The passion.
That's it.
Yeah.
Because like most people don't think about that as being passion, but no, like when somebody says something and you get fired up about that, that's what passion is.
What if it's something that, you know, there's a lot of young men, women, whatever, who are into video games, are into indulgent things that aren't necessarily considered good. I can't concentrate in school for 8 hours, but I can play 18 hours of video games and I'm passionate about that. How do you shift a negative passion into a good one? Is that even possible?
Well, that goes back to the clarity piece. So when I'm talking about clarity, I think right now we're living in a time where we're living in a duality of immediate gratification versus long-term success. And those two things very rarely exist together. Like, let's be honest. Like we always hear this, you know, live in the now, be present and all that. If we're completely honest about that statement, if I'm 100% living for the now and I don't care about the future, I'm not eating healthy. I'm going to enjoy all the good food. I'm probably going to have some drinks. I'm not going to go to work. I'm going to spend time with my family and loved ones. I'm going to do all these things that don't contribute to a fulfilling future.
Yeah.
So a lot of times we give into this immediate gratification because we don't have clarity in what we actually want to achieve in life. And having some sort of end of life vision for yourself of like, okay, on my deathbed, what's a story that I would actually want to tell?
Right.
No one wants to tell a story of, yeah, I played video games, worked at Burger King, and never found love.
Right.
Nobody wants to tell that story.
Right.
Nobody wants to, and honestly, like if we're looking at men, nobody wants to tell a story of like, yeah, you know, I made a bunch of money and I slept with a bunch of girls. Like they don't, at the end of your days, you don't want to tell
It's a fun movie, but
correct.
Not a fun life.
No. So getting like really, really clear on like, okay, what story do I want to tell one day? And then just making sure that we align our actions, lived in an aligned life towards that story.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, that's super important. For me, my wife is pregnant. My baby's due here in a couple months. And I already know when that baby's born, that's my new why. That's 100%. Why I'm going to work. That's why that is my why. So I think for men, that father, you know, being a father and a husband, that's a really important piece that I think any young man should look at and strive for. Obviously, people can live their lives in different ways. And, you know, today there's homosexuality and there's a lot more prevalence in not going that traditional route of a father and a husband. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But I just think every young man should really consider that lifestyle and what that lifestyle means, because I can already tell you, being a husband, it's super challenging, but the foundation is, hey, we're building a family here. It's kind of a cool thing. And when I think about the why, and when I think about the end of my life on my deathbed and what I've accomplished, being a good husband and a father is a huge part of that. Yeah. So I think business and entrepreneurship is great, but you kind of have to think about that personal side of life too.
Well, let's be honest. If I asked you, and you're honest with me, why are you building a business? What are you going to tell me?
It's for my family.
Exactly.
The legacy.
100%. Most people, like, yes, I don't care what route you take as far as like how the family's made up. Family and relationships, and we know this by science too. This isn't just me being theoretical. We know by science that family and relationships are the most important thing in life. And it's actually the number one indicator for you living a long life. It's not what you eat. It's not what you drink. It's not that you exercise. Relationships are the number one indicator for you living a long life. So that just tells you how important they are. Everything we do in life comes back to relationships. Why do I want that car? Well, because I want to get the girl to have the relationship. Why do I want to make a lot of money? Because I need the status to get the girl to get the relationship. Like, why am I doing everything I'm doing? Oh, crap. It all goes back to relationships. Whether it be just to get the girl or to actually start a family, like whatever your current definition of what relationships are. It may be because I want to make my dad proud.
Right.
That's a big one for a lot of men. So whatever that looks like, but most of the things we do in life, if we really, really think about them, comes back to relationships.
I think a lot of the why too comes from maybe relationships that you've had with someone who's been very instrumental in your life, a mentor, you know, your father, your grandfather, whatever. But the reason why a lot of people do what they do is because they have maybe not pressure behind them. Pressure might be the wrong word, but at least inspiration. my dad did this and accomplished this. I feel like I need to do this and accomplish that. So I think there's relationships on that kind of back end of your why too, that push you forward.
Yeah. Well, like when we look at the actual like scientific breakdown of the why, it's mainly comprised of your past stories. So how can I use my past stories to empower me to create a better future? Because a lot of people, like one of the biggest things I see that holds people back is they let their past stories defeat them. I'll never be good enough for my dad. Or my girlfriend didn't think I was good enough, so I'll never be, successful. They let their past stories be the limitation that creates the barriers to their success. But how do I reframe those stories to empower me to create a brighter future? That's really what that why process does. Like a lot of my why, if I'm honest, comes from me solving the problems that are the pain of my past. So I've had pain in the past. So my why is basically geared around solving those problems to not only fix that for myself, but to fix that for others. And that's one of the biggest things. Like passion is a word that people throw around a lot these days. Like, what are you passionate about? What's your passion? Passion to me is getting past ego's basic needs to fully live your gifts in the service of others.
Oh, I like that.
And that's honestly, like even when we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, he had to fix that before he died because he realized you reaching your potential is not enough for humans. Humans have to reach their potential and then transcend themselves to help others. So when we look at your why and your passion, it's always going to be for other people. No one ever stays selfish in their life unless they're a true narcissist. It's always for a family or for your community or for the betterment of others. Yeah, we have completely different roads of how to get there. But if you ask people, like one of the funnest questions I ask people, hey, if you had all the money in the world and all the time in the world, what would you be doing? No one ever says anything selfish. Like they'll joke around and say, I'd be living on a beach and drinking whatever. But
for 5 days and then you're bored and then
100%. Yeah. Like what? Okay. After you did that, what would you do? If you ask that question, 99% of the time, you're going to get somebody serving someone else, making the world a better place. But that's putting them in an abundance mindset to be able to see that clearly. Most people operate from scarcity. How do I solve my ego's basic needs? And that's why they don't live with passion and purpose.
Why do you think so many people have problems with motivation, mental health issues? I can't sleep at night, I'm worried about this and that. Why do you think there's such a need for this type of service that you provide?
Well, let me ask you this. When you were getting your education, formal and informal, did anyone in there teach you emotional intelligence?
Zero.
Okay. Did anyone teach you like how to actually formulate your why or to gain clarity in your mission and purpose? Like, did anyone teach you these tools?
Too busy learning algebra and geometry and all the other BS.
Too busy passing tests.
Yeah.
So the problem, and I saw it back there, it's actually up there right now, that is my nonprofit working in schools. And I'm trying to teach some of these tools to kids. Like what would happen to our school system and our youth if they learned how to process their emotions in a healthy way and understand that, oh, hold on, you mean I don't have to be my emotion? I can choose a different emotion? Hold on, just because I feel sad today does not make me a bad person. It's just a feeling that I'm feeling. Like we're never taught the tools to actually be successful in life. Even, have you ever seen this show Scorpion?
No.
Scorpion is actually based on a true story of a think tank. And this guy, he had like the highest IQ in the world, but he realized like, I'm the smartest person in the world, but I have no clue how to talk to people. I have zero social intelligence. And he started learning social intelligence, and then he started helping other high IQ people learn social intelligence. And he's like, wow, like I'm the smartest person in the world. I have all this capacity to do amazing things, but I'm missing the most important thing, which is how to deal with humans. We're never taught these things. And that's one of the fundamental problems that I'm seeing right now is like, we're trying to solve all these symptoms instead of getting to the root cause, which is your mental health.
There's so many issues across our entire society that stem from mental health. So I think it's great you're doing that. I think it's huge. What age? I mean, what's the minimum age you're working with? Is it elementary? It looks like this is an elementary school we've got pulled up here.
So that was actually a program I ran for teachers.
Great, even better idea. Yeah.
I was teaching teachers the tools so they could put them in their classroom. In that school right there, and this is what's crazy, like you mentioned mental health crisis. This is an elementary school that was having kids have like panic attacks in an elementary school. And these teachers, of course, like they're not trained in mental health.
Right.
This kid's having a panic attack in my room. What do I do? So I got that school mental health first aid certified, which is first aid for mental health, like how to actually talk to a kid that's having a panic attack, how to actually calm them down and soothe them. So my primary demographic I work with when it comes to kids is like early teenagers, and it's getting younger and younger as our society advances faster and faster. But what I've realized is elementary school's too young, because as much as I want to help them, they're going to listen to their parents. So everything I try to help them do, their parents are going to tell them otherwise. But an early teenager is those first years, and you remember these years, where you're like getting independent, you're starting to, rebut authority, and no, like they don't know what they're talking about. Like I know everything. So like in the early teenage years, they're starting to rebel. So if I can catch them in the early onset of that rebellion, when they're starting to think independently and freely, that's when they're the most impressionable that we can really create some change.
That's awesome, man. That's phenomenal. And I think like teaching teachers is a great idea. Teachers really are the front line of that mental health problem. Unfortunately, that responsibility rests on their shoulders.
It does. Yeah, and they're not getting compensated for that either.
No, they don't get paid extra for that type of service. But I think it's phenomenal that you're doing that. And I really think across schools, across the entire country, that mental health should be taught. It's a really crazy thing being a human being. When you get older, you learn how to control your emotions. Most people do. Well, maybe not most. Most might be the wrong word.
We hope they do.
We hope they do. It's reflective, though, of why there's so many problems in our society. It's all stemming from mental health. Like you said, catching it young is super important. What do where do you see all this going? Do you think that all of your efforts are worth it? You must, right?
Absolutely. I mean, yes, I have a grand vision for that program. And part of the new program I'm launching with Undeniable Men is like, once these men go through the program, hey, now I want you to go in your community and mentor other men, boys. And so like, yes, I'm nowhere near the impact I want to have, but I'm seeing the impact of what I'm doing. And, it goes to that ripple effect thing, right? I'm just a pebble in the water. But if I can create change, as small as it may be, then I'm doing good. And I feel like I'm putting my gifts and my energy to good use. And yeah, look, it's time consuming. It takes away from my business. But at the same time, like, bro, this is what I was put on this earth to do.
Yeah.
And every day that I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing to advance that cause, I'm being selfish. And there's a kid out there hurting because I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it also goes back to what you said earlier about like, at the end of the day, you feel like shit if you're not accomplishing what you need to accomplish, what you're put on this earth to do.
100%.
I mean, I feel the same way, man. Like if I'm not building my business in an effective way, and like we talked about, even if I have crazy problems, a big fire blows up that I have to put out, I'm dealing with people issues. We even had a lawsuit last year, which I beat, but I even remember when that came in and I was so confident that we were going to win that lawsuit, it didn't even bother me. Conversely, I could have a day where nothing bad happens, but if I'm slacking off and if I'm not doing the right thing at the end of the day, I feel worse than ever. So it's like balancing that why and trying to figure out, what am I really put on this earth to do? And I think it goes back to what you're talking about with children. Children, they do what they want to do all day long. They play, they're interested in whatever they're interested in exclusively. As you get older, you have to get a job and bills come up and you kind of have to take life a little bit more seriously. It's almost like you're kind of going to these people you coach and you're kind of bringing them back to that child mentality where it's like, look, what are you passionate about? What do you want to do? What would you do if you weren't getting paid? It's kind of digging into that inner child. Hey, put aside the job for a second, put aside the girl you want to impress. Let's get down to the root and then kind of grow from there.
Yeah, a lot of adulting is unlearning a lot.
Right.
You have to unlearn a lot of the crap you've learned that society teaches you, that the school systems teach you, that broke Uncle Bob tries to teach you. A lot of adulting is just unlearning the crap you've learned and getting back to, yes, it's a combination of being in a childlike state of constant curiosity. A beautiful thing about a child does not know failure. They don't understand the word no.
Right.
They have this grit and determination that just imagine where we'd be in business and life if we had that same, there's no such thing as failure. Every time I try to walk and fall, like, I don't think I'm not going to walk anymore. I'm going to get back up and try to walk again.
It's like some of the greats that are out there, like Steve Jobs and Elon Musk and some of these guys, you can tell that they have that type of mentality. They don't give a shit if they fail. Look at how many times Elon Musk blew up that rocket before he got it right.
Yeah.
Imagine if he gave up on the first one. So when you look at those people that have achieved massive success, one thing they all have in common is not fear in the failure sense, but fear of just slacking off and not doing what they're passionate about. That's their fear. They don't fear if they get it wrong. You can always make correction. The big fear is not living up to your potential.
100%. And actually, if you listen to the podcast of all like the high achievers, they all share that in common. Like, their greatest fear is not becoming who they were meant to be. Mm-hmm. And you hear a lot of guys like Ed Milet, Lewis Howes talk about, like, my biggest fear is getting to heaven one day and meeting the man I was supposed to be. And actually, I think Les Brown was the first one to kind of talk about that. But like, when I first heard that, I'm like, oh, whoa, that is scary, because like, that's me being selfish. That's me like giving into my weaker self, and I can't do that. So yes, that is a big part of it, is like, every person walking the earth was put on this earth for greatness. Just, are you willing to overcome your story to tap into that potential that's waiting on you?
That's a tough script to flip, right? I mean, if you were abused as a child, so many people have so many problems. I mean, I don't compare myself to others. My childhood was decent. My parents were divorced young. My dad and mom split. And I mean, I have obviously my own issues, but finding that power inside yourself to forgive the past and move on. You mentioned that was kind of that first hurdle. Mm-hmm. That's a tough one for a lot of people.
It is. And like, what I like to go back to there is separating story from truth. Because a story is, oh, well, my past was crappy, I'll be crappy. Like, is that true? Like, how do you know that's true?
Right.
Like, that's
and have some relativity to other people around the world and in your own community who are underprivileged.
Yeah. Like, and actually, your zip code is the number one predictor of success in life, which just tells you how like important culture and society is. But on the other side of that is the truth. Has anyone ever in history come from my situation and been successful? Yes. Okay, then it's possible. So now I know the truth of the situation I'm in. So the only thing holding me back is me, because now I have proof and evidence that it's possible. So now I just have to make the decision. Am I willing to do the work to get there? And that's the decision to make.
People all the time, what's my excuse? They look for excuses. It's never been done before, this and that. It's like, well, have you really looked at the situation? Because all across the internet, you can find stories of people that have overcome unbelievably massive obstacles. Every day you can find a story of someone's success. Neighborhoods across the country that are completely underprivileged. People have came from that and been successful. People have come from abusive relationships and had great relationships and great families. People have made a ton of money when they started off with no money. When you start to really dig into it, there's almost no excuse.
No, like, the only excuses happen were like, hey, I'm 5'2" and I want to play in the NBA.
Exactly.
Like, there's stupid stuff.
I want to be an astronaut, but I didn't graduate high school.
Yeah, like, I don't do any work, so I obviously can't do that. But like, one of like the foundations that I live on is human potential is limitless. Like, we really are unlimited in what we can do and accomplish in this world. And once again, that's just a paradigm shift. That's just a perspective that I choose to see the world through. That's a choice that I make to see the world through that lens. Yes, do I have evidence in my past to show me how hard that is, and to show me that, hey, you failed before. Like, bro, your batting average is not that great. So I have evidence to show me that that's not possible, but I choose to believe different. And that is a conscious choice that I'm going to make every day. I'm not going to fall victim to my subconscious stories.
Is this whole thing based on a paradigm shift? I mean, it almost sounds like the way to optimize your life is to have a different outlook on life.
The lens you see the world through definitely influences your decisions. For instance, like what we were just talking about, if you believe something's impossible, then you're not going to take actions toward it. If you believe something's possible, which is, it could be the same situation, you're just looking at it from a different lens. If you believe it's possible, then you're going to try to do it. If you believe you can't have something, you're not going to try to get it. If you believe you can have something, you're going to try to get it. So yes, a lot of it is just, what perspective do you see the world through? And you're either going to look at that perspective from scarcity or abundance, from victim or victor. How do you want to see the world? And look, I may fail a lot more in life. I may hit a lot more roadblocks. But I know this: if I choose to see the world through a victim scarcity mindset, I'm going to fail. It's inevitable. But if I choose to see the world through an abundance victor mindset, then I may not achieve everything I want to achieve. But when given those two paths, I know which one leads to a better outcome.
And then relationship-wise too, that energy feeds off on other people. Everyone hates like a bad apple, negative energy type person. If you're trying to go somewhere in life, especially as a business owner and entrepreneur, a little bit different if you're kind of steady Eddie in your job and you just, hey, I want to be happy and support my family, that's great. As an entrepreneur, if you need people around you on that same page and have that same mindset, you can't be a negative Nancy. You can't have a bad attitude. If anyone is going to believe that this company or any other company can achieve great things, it's got to be the principal. It's got to be the guy in charge and the guy that's putting everything together. If the captain of the ship doesn't know where the ship is going, you're going to have some problems.
100%. And you're not going to have any buy-in. So here's the deal with that. Like, energy is like, it's a woo-woo topic, but now with quantum science and fMRI machines, we can now measure energy. So we know it's a scientific proven fact that energy actually transfers between individuals. We can measure it now. And just to give you a quick example, you've heard people say, like, we're on the same wavelength. Like, we had a deep conversation. We're just vibing. We're on the same wavelength. That's actually a true thing. When two people have a deep conversation, their brain wavelengths sync up. So we can measure this now. We know this to be true. So given that evidence, we know the importance of energy. And yes, negative energy is contagious, but so is positive energy.
Right.
And when you have that infectious positive energy that's built around a mission and purpose, people want to belong to that. And like the example there is like, just look at CrossFit, man.
Right.
People go do CrossFit every day and destroy their bodies.
Right.
I mean, they keep chiropractors in business. And it's still a growing trend. Why? Because it's positive. It's a community that people want to be a part of.
It's so true.
The energy is good. I don't care what it does to my body. I love being around this energy, so I'm going to keep going.
It's like my wife with her spin class. It's like, babe, why are you doing that? You burn 800 calories. It destroys your body. Your legs are always sore. But I love the people. I love it. It gives me energy. It's like, I'm not happy if I don't go. She goes and works out, not to work out her body and not to be physically fit. She goes and does it because it makes her feel. It's a feeling. Interesting.
Well, that's the human condition, man.
Yeah.
So much of what we do, if we really like boil down our decisions, every decision we make is chasing a feeling. So if we know that, like, one of the acronyms I use in my business is action creates emotion. So many people let emotions dictate their actions. I don't feel like it today. Or, no, I'm not feeling motivated today. Bro, that's a feeling. I want to pick the emotion I want to feel and then take the actions to dictate that emotion. Like, I want to take the actions to create that emotion. The example there is like, you just said it, going to the gym. Most people won't go to the gym because they don't feel like it. But let me ask you this. Have you ever regretted a workout?
Right.
No.
walk out of there feeling great every time.
And it's the days you don't feel like going that you still go that you feel the best. So an action created an emotion. And once we start being proactive with creating emotions, life changes. And that's like a lot of the work I do with my clients is like, what energy is best for us? Like, do we need to be in extroverted energy? Do we need to be in like a speaking energy? Like, what energy do we want to create? All right, what are the actions to create that energy to be in an optimized state for the result we're looking for? And like, you know, like there's one energy you create for work, but then what's a priming technique I can use to turn that energy off? And then going to more my lover energy to go home to be with my family. My kids don't need CEO version of me coming home. My kids need dad version of me. My wife needs husband version of me. She doesn't need the dictator that's at work every day, right? So much of this is priming and taking actions to create the energy and the emotion we want to feel versus the other way around.
Look at the products that are out there too to create that energy. For instance, going back to the gym, pre-workout. Oh, I'm not feeling it today. I'll take a scoop of this powder and it's 350 milligrams of caffeine and a bunch of other crap and it'll make me feel good and I want to go to the gym. You can't live your life like that. You can't wake up every day to go to work. Oh, I hate doing this. I don't want to do this. Okay, well, you can't. You have to have that paradigm shift. When someone does wake up in the morning and they don't want to go to work or they don't want to go to the gym, how do you prime yourself? How do you have that mindset shift?
So this is the thing about personal development. And a lot of gurus in personal development get this wrong. There is no one system that works for everybody. It's called personal development for a reason. It's what works for the person. I've had so many clients that it's literally the scientific method, finding what works for them. All right, let's form a hypothesis. Let's test this hypothesis. Let's gather the knowledge that we just learned from testing this, reformulate a hypothesis and try something else. For some people, like, bro, it might be meditating. Like, let me just calm my mind. Let me do some breathing exercises. Let me read the Bible. Let me pray. Let me go work out. Like, that'll create some endorphins. What works for you? And sadly, the part about that is that's a process that you have to go through that most people aren't willing to go through. They'll try one thing. Oh, that didn't work for me. I'm giving up. I'm just going to live a crappy life now. Like, no, try something else. Try things until you find what works for you. Like, you know, one of the guys we talked about earlier, Alex Ramosi, he does not have a morning routine and he finds that works best for him. Yeah. Yet look at every other guru out there. They'll tell you the morning routine is the most important part of your day.
Wake up at 6 a.m., work out, do this, do that. Yeah.
Robin Sharma's 5 a.m. club book, right? So it's like, what works for you? And that's everything in personal. I had a coach of mine tell me one time, like, hey, for the next couple months, I need you to stop meditating. And I was like, oh, wow. And I was just too much in my mind. I wasn't enough in my body. So my coach helped me, you know, get back in my body and get back into motion and taking action because I was thinking too much.
Interesting.
So like, and it may be like, okay, one of the big things I love about personal growth, and like for me, I have a toolkit with all these tools in it to create emotions or to create energy or to shift my paradigm. The thing about personal growth is just understanding the tools and when to apply them. Just like in business, right? Like if you understand marketing, like, okay, our CTA sucks. We need to have a better CTA. Or, you know, we're setting all these appointments, but we're getting no shows. Like what lever and what tool do I need to pull when and where to optimize for results?
I think a lot of people feel like they don't have the time to take a step back and unpack their life and go through that process. I'm busy with work. I'm doing the kids. I need to pick up the girl from ballet practice. People just get crazy with their own life. How do you sit somebody down and say, look, man, you're going to have to take a step back. I mean, you got to figure this thing out.
Yeah, I call that drowning in priorities. And that's the way most people live their life, bro. They're just like treading water, drowning in the priorities they've created.
Going from A to B to C to D, yeah.
100%. But my question always there is like, what are you going to regret more? Living a life drowning in priorities or taking some time now to reprioritize, maybe say no to some stuff, set some boundaries, and live that life? Like, which one of those are you going to regret less? So yeah, look, nobody likes slowing down, but we all know this for facts we've done in our lives. Sometimes we have to take a step back to take a giant leap forward. I've had to do it in my life by hiring different coaches and hiring different people in my business. And it's a part of the process because there's actually something called throning that I love this term. If you've ever watched like any of the old movies when they're like, there's a king of a kingdom. There's times he's at war. There's times he's, solving the people's problems. But there's also times that king has to just sit on his throne and think, bro, like, am I living an aligned life? Am I living on mission and purpose? Am I doing the things that are making my life and my family, my kingdom better? And that throning process has to happen just to make sure you have the clarity that, okay, my metrics are good. I'm hitting all my KPIs.
Am I really on the right path?
100%.
That's the question.
Yep.
Yeah. A lot of people get caught up in day-to-day lives. As you might, people live busy lives. It's just a fact. People have kids and families and friends and this event and that event and this person's birthday and whatever's going on. But I think a lot of people should understand that it's extremely important that you understand the direction you're going in, or else you're going to fall off the tracks. And I've dealt with that a lot, kind of starting this new phase of my business. So I own a real estate company. A vast majority of what we do is brokerage. And so for the past 6 years, I've been focused on getting my mom's business in Sarasota, the other agents we have in Sarasota, and then my business and my wife's business kind of supported. For the past probably 8 or 10 months, I've been growing the brand up here in Tampa, and we hired a bunch of people, and now we have almost 30 agents total. And sometimes things don't happen as quickly as I want them to. And it's like what you mentioned about, hey, find that hypothesis, go down that road. If that doesn't work out, kind of switch gears and kind of try a different thing. And sometimes you just can't find that path and you get so discouraged. And at the end of the day, you're like, oh, I can't figure it out, But I think realizing that anything in life, you're in it for the long haul. This is your entire life. You only have the rest of your life to figure anything out. So in business and mental health, family matters, relationships, whatever it is, you can't pretend like things are going to happen overnight. What you did with your body, losing 100 pounds in a year, that's damn quick. 100 pounds in a year is quick. But the idea that you're going to lose that much weight in a matter of weeks, days, months, impossible. And just like losing weight, getting healthy, business, relationships, everything takes time and everything has to go a certain direction. So finding that direction is not necessarily something that's going to happen overnight. So kind of like understanding that, hey, I might not be in the right place right now, but as long as I keep grinding and I keep living my purpose and I keep moving in a forward direction, it's all going to be good, man. Everything's going to be okay.
Yeah. Like the thing I love about what I do is I work with some amazing individuals, from pro athletes to like top rock bands in the world. And then these incredible like CEOs and entrepreneurs. No one's got it figured out. And I hate to break it to you, no one will ever have it figured out. We are all just living this life, doing the best we can. And that's all we can ever ask of anybody. Like, hey, did you do the best you can? Okay, good. One of Les Brown's like quotes that I love the most is he said, all you can do is all you can do. And all you can do is enough. Because at the end of the day, you can't do anything more than that.
Yeah.
But it goes back to what you said, and we talked about it earlier. Like, do you have that North Star for your life, of that life you want to create for yourself? And are you constantly making progress towards that? And that path, you don't know how you're going to get there. Like, that's the crazy part of life is we humans love having control, yet we don't have control. The only thing we can control is anything internal. Anything past our physical body, we have no control over. So, okay, let's focus on what we can control, which is ourselves. And then let's just make the progress and make the effort towards moving to that North Star. That road is going to wind. It's going to change. There's going to be detours. There's going to be roadblocks. But it's the same way GPS works. Like if you're driving a long trip on a GPS, it's going to reroute you around traffic. It's going to take you around roads that are shut down. That's the same analogy for life. But like you said, the point is keep moving forward. And like that Martin Luther King quote, like, if you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But keep moving forward.
Keep moving forward. And I think too, especially in business, as someone who, myself and really any other person trying to start a company with people, man, you're going to have to, there's going to be a point in your business where you're going to have to delegate. You're going to have to take some of that control and place it onto someone else. getting them aligned in that purpose is just as important as you having that purpose too. What's one way a leader, business owner can kind of like delegate, man? I mean, what I've done in my case is, like Tyler, he's the producer of the podcast, but he's also working with my company. And me kind of letting him do certain things has been hard for me, frankly, because it's like, I want to do it my way. I want to have control. I'm the only one that knows how to do it. I think that's the wrong way to think about it. I think finding good people and getting them on board with you is extremely important as an entrepreneur. If you don't have good people, you can't execute your vision. So what's kind of like a way where a leader, business owner can explain that vision to someone else and bring them on board?
Yeah, like it's it's funny you bring that up. Like of all my work, one thing that I've seen time and time again, business owners and entrepreneurs are the biggest constraint to their business for the exact reason you just said. They can't relinquish control. And like, hey, bro, you're the bottleneck in your business. You've got to find a way to get some of this off your plate. So the first question there for the business owner, the entrepreneur, whoever's in charge, where are you at your highest and best self? Like, where do you bring the most value to the company? What's the highest ROI activities that you're doing? And also, like, what makes you come alive? So once we identify those activities, like I told you, I just went through this process. Once you identify those activities, okay, I'm going to do those. Everything else, I'm going to find someone else to do. Because when I'm at my highest and best self and everything else is getting taken care of, oh, we're making things work. Mm-hmm. Things are happening. So when we're talking about human capital and really developing a high performance team, the very first part is culture. Culture starts with leadership, and the leadership has to live everything they're trying to instill in their culture. So what is the culture that you want in your business? And the best way to define culture is if I walked up to one of your employees and I say, hey, what's it like working there? Their answer is your culture. So, oh, I'm excited to work there. We have a great environment. They're always pouring into us. Like, that's your culture. Or like, yeah, you know, we do real estate.
Right.
Oh, that's your culture too. So your culture is what your employees say about you when you're not around. So what culture, I want to get really clear on what culture I want to have in my business. I want to install this entrepreneur mindset of you own your job, you own your role, and your position there is to solve problems. And I want to really, really empower people to take ownership of that, because we also know that autonomy in a role drives performance, because that's a human thing that we need. We need some sense of control, some sense of ownership, as small as it may be, because then we feel better about what we're doing. And also the biggest thing that I would say with culture is getting people to buy into your mission and purpose. People will run through walls for the right mission and purpose. Nietzsche said that with a strong enough why, you can overcome any how. So what's the why of your business? What's that mission and purpose? And if they're bought into the mission and purpose enough, and you see this a lot in like tech startups, people have no clue if that business is going to work or not. They don't even know if they're going to get paid, but they've bought into the mission and purpose so much that they're willing to do whatever it takes for the success of that business. So it's a combination of a lot, but it definitely starts with your mission and purpose and getting people to fully buy into where we're going. Because that's also, like, if we're going to talk about psychology, that's a big part of like motivation is a compelling story of where I'm going.
Right.
Not just what we're doing right now, but where's this thing going? If that's exciting enough,
where's the payoff almost? Yeah. Like
I want to be a part of that. Yeah. I want to be a part of where this is going. Like I get that times are lean right now. I get things are tough right now, but you're telling me that if I work hard, I can get there. Oh, that's something I want to be a part of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, like the Facebook story, like just, you know, Mark Zuckerberg, he wasn't necessarily the smartest guy in the room or the guy that was the most personable, but he created that culture and found people to fill those voids where maybe it wasn't a strong suit. And then people just wanted to be a part of it. Like that movie, The Social Network, explained that perfectly. Yep. All these people jumping on board with their individual talents and individual personalities and each person at a company has their own why, but they're all invested in that company's vision, and people appreciated that. And that's why Facebook is, one of the largest tech companies in the world. Same thing with Apple. It's really like all those huge companies, even Elon Musk, they have that same story where that lead guy has this vision. All these people buy into it for great reasons, and they execute that vision together.
Yeah, you see the same thing in sports teams.
Right.
Like if we look at the NFL, yes, there is different levels of talent, but the parity's not that much. If you're in the freaking NFL, you're talented. And any given year, any given team can win the Super Bowl. But a big part of that is what's the culture like? And coaches always will tell you this. Like our culture sucked this year. We had no leaders. One of the coolest things was I got to know Nick Saban a while back. And one of the cool things I learned about what he was doing in Alabama, he's got all his players reading John Maxwell leadership books. That's what kind of culture he's putting in at Alabama. Like those are the details. Like I want you to be a leader. So like, that's the things that we have to get people to buy into. And that's what we have to create if we truly want to achieve success.
What do you say to someone that just kind of wants to go out in the woods, live alone? Like you mentioned relationships before. What if I just want to go out in the woods, live alone, and I'm satisfied doing that? Is that okay? Or would you kind of preach to that person, you were built for more, you live your ambition, live your purpose? And what if they're like, I don't know, I'm happy just doing this?
My job is to get people what they want. So I help them get really clear on what they want. If that's what you want, bro, then go do it.
Right.
I'm not going to stop you. We need people to go out and do great things. We need people to change the world. Entrepreneurs are the best problem solvers in the world. But hey, bro, if you want to go be a nomad, then I'm not going to stop you. Mm-hmm. My big thing is like, do what makes you happy. Mm-hmm. And it's not necessarily happiness that I'm looking for. I'm looking more for fulfillment. But I just kind of use that expression because people will understand that a lot more with me having to go into the speech about what fulfillment really is. Like, do what makes you happy. Like, is at the end of your life, like we talked about, will that make you happy? Is telling that story. Okay, then go do it. And here's what we find out is we realize like sometimes like we think that's going to make us happy, but you're not going to know that's not what's going to make you happy until you go do it and live it. How many college graduates graduate with their degree, they get into their job and they realize like, oh, this is terrible. Mm-hmm. Like for instance, me,
right, exactly.
I have my MBA in finance. I hate finance. Like when I was doing commercial real estate, my job was to run the numbers every day. And I was working on a 5 different page connected spreadsheet where if I got one number wrong on one page, all 5 pages were wrong. That caused me so much anxiety. One of my weaknesses is I'm not a details person. I'm a big picture strategy guy. I'm not a details guy. So finance, you've got to pay attention to
Why'd you get a finance degree?
I liked money. I want to make money, and
right.
Hey, finance is money.
And you got to go to college, right?
And I played college football, so...
Where'd you play at?
Southern Miss.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I was an All-American there, finalist for best center in the country. So, like, of course, like, playing college football, I got 2 degrees and a master's because it was free, and I didn't want to screw around when I was there. I actually wanted to accomplish something. But yeah, I graduated, and I was like, oh, I'll go into personal finance. I'll go work for a broker. I like people, but I don't like numbers.
This isn't as fun as football. What's going on here?
No, but like, that's the thing is like, sometimes you have to go, and I tell this to a lot of young kids that I mentor, especially like college kids and kids coming straight out of college. Look, go do as much as you possibly can. Say yes until you can't say yes anymore, until you literally have to say no. Go try as much stuff as you can because that's the only way you're going to know if you like something or not.
It's a good time in your life to do it.
100%.
Right when you graduate high school, you do have that decision where, okay, am I going to go to college and have some sort of a professional job? If I want to be a lawyer, I got to go to college. If I want to be a doctor, I got to go to college. If you don't want to do that, make that decision, or hell, go try something for a couple of years and then go to college. I think your 20s are super instrumental. Like, just figure out what you want to do, man. Like we talked about with the hypothesis, try different things. If you burn a year of your life and you go from 21 to 22, that's okay, man. That's okay. But the worst thing you can do is get stuck in a job you hate and be doing that the rest of your life and be miserable.
Yeah. There's a line from a movie where George Clooney is doing exit interviews for people. And he's literally laying off a ton of people. I forgot the name of this movie. It's a great line. And in one of the exit interviews, he's interviewing this guy, and he asked him this question: how much did they pay you to give up your dream?
Ooh, that's a toughie.
Right? But that's what a lot of people do in their job. is they're getting paid. There's a thing called the region beta paradox, where it's like things are bad, but they're not bad enough for me to make a change. And that's where a lot of people exist. They're in a relationship that's not really the best for them, but it's not painful enough to change. They're in a job they don't like, but it's paying the bills and they have a roof over their head and food in their fridge. So it's not painful enough to change.
I'm just thinking about that from a real estate perspective, right? We've seen the migration and patterns in Florida. A lot of things. California is a beautiful place to live. For a long time, it had extremely high taxes that people complained about, but it wasn't bad enough for them to leave.
Correct.
Then the pandemic hit, crazy COVID policy, homelessness. They were overrun with many, many issues, and people thought, okay, now it's bad.
Now
I'm bailing. So it's funny that expresses itself in migration too. People will pack up their shit and leave and move to a different state when they hit that tipping point.
Yeah, it's like, when I was doing health coaching, a lot of times, like, people knew their health wasn't good, but it took them having a heart attack or, having a parent die. It took them having a massive pain in their life to realize, oh crap, I've actually got to change.
My grandfather was having problems with his bowel movements for apparently a few months. Didn't tell anyone, wasn't bad enough. Then one day he fainted, ended up on the ground. Thank God his wife was there, took him to the hospital. He's fine now. But it's like, dude, what was your plan? You were just going to kind of ride that out, not tell anyone about, your issues. Better. And it's like people are so the same in so many ways like that. People operate in the same way where you can be pushed from outside forces, and you're so right. People won't make a change, even if it's beneficial to them. Hey man, you need to stop smoking cigarettes. Here's the issue. Whatever. Okay, well then at your next doctor visit, you hear the news, you're forming cancer cells in your lungs. Well, now maybe I'll quit and put down the cigarettes. It sucks that sometimes people take that. They have to have hard news. You have to have something bad for you to make a change.
But that's a psychological principle though. Our brain wants to keep us alive. That's its primary job. So all the functions in the brain are what's going to keep me safe and secure. And a lot of times that safe, secure is my known comfort. I'm not saying it's your comfort. I'm saying it's your known comfort. So like, I know this, and it's not scary because even if it's bad, even if it's painful, I know it. So it's not an unknown scary. That's where the brain doesn't want to go. So it takes something to really interject in there, or it takes something radical happen for somebody to go against the brain's natural programming, which is safety, security, to go and do something that's, a little scary, has a little risk to it, but the potential payoff is great.
And oftentimes a lot of those things end up completely fine. I think you're right. I think a lot of people's anxiety and fear comes from the unknown. It's not necessarily that, hey man, the odds are 99-1, like this isn't going to work. It's impossible. I don't think fear comes from that. I think it comes from, well, I've never done it before. What is it going to be like? What's going to happen? That is where a lot of people get caught up. And that's why people get caught up in doing things that they really don't care about doing.
Yeah.
In jobs, people stay in relationships they know they shouldn't be in because, well, if I break up with the person, who's next and what's going to happen? And people get caught up in that repetitive nature. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Seneca said this. I'm a huge Stoic philosophy fan. Stoic philosophy has literally changed my life. But Seneca said, we suffer far worse in imagination than we do in real life.
Ooh. That's huge right there.
It is, because when we look at our fears of public speaking, I just had to go through this with the client, or, asking the girl out or whatever it is, whatever your fear is, you make it so much worse in your brain than it actually is. And then you go do the thing. And what's the first thing you say? Oh, that wasn't that bad.
Every time.
I didn't die. Mm-hmm. And that's the human condition though, because once again, our brain keeps us secure and safe in the known comfort. So we create all these stories about the unknown when most of them aren't even true. And that's why I like separating story from truth so much. What's the story you're telling yourself versus what's the truth of this situation? And once we can separate those two things, okay, the truth is I'm not going to die. I may get judged, but that won't last very long. And honestly, if we go to one of the number one fears, public speaking, how many times have you seen someone speak on stage and they didn't do that well, but your brain goes, oh man, they're trying. They're not great, but at least they're doing it. That's what you're judging them. You're not judging this person's terrible. Like, that's not what you're saying in your head.
No.
So we make up all these stories in our head that just simply aren't true. When I used to do health coaching, and I know I keep going back to this, but one of the funniest things I used to tell people, like I'd work with these women that were scared to death to go to the gym. Why? Because they were overweight and they didn't want to be judged. I said, let me ask you this. If you go into the gym, what are you thinking about? How everyone else is judging you, right? What do you think the percentage of people in that gym that are thinking the exact same thing? Probably everybody, right? So if everybody's only concerned with everybody else judging them, who's thinking about you? No one. Because everybody's worried about their own insecurities.
And oftentimes, whenever I see a heavier person in the gym, I think, good for them. That's
Absolutely.
awesome.
100%.
That's amazing. Good for them getting out there and doing it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's just, we create these stories that just simply aren't true. And we've got to get to the truth of the situation.
I love how you talk about what's the truth versus what's a story. David Goggins has a new book out. It's really, really good. And he talks about writing. Write down what happened. Write down your thoughts. Put it on paper and then read it. And there's the story. There's the real fact with no emotion attached to it. So like, you know, my parents were divorced. It was really hard, you know, in my personal life and all that growing up. If I was going to write that story on paper and then go watch the news and see what's going on in Ukraine and the rest of the world, I might think, well, my story's not so bad. So that like perspective change and putting it on paper and saying, this is the story, here are the words without emotion. I think that's something a lot of people could do with their childhood or things that have happened in their past that could help a lot. How do you typically unravel someone's past?
All of my clients write. It's one of the biggest tools that I use for a lot of things. I got, you know, going through triggers in your life, going through those past stories, like let's write about it. And what you're talking about is when we're in a heightened emotional state, which a lot of times the stories create the heightened emotions. And that's like PTSD. PTSD is simply a story with a very, very emotionally charged feeling attached to it. So everyone has some form of PTSD in their life from past stories, and it has this emotion attached to it. So one of the reasons why what you just talked about is effective is once we write it on paper, we release it of its emotions. And we're able to look at this once emotionally charged story from a logical standpoint. And that's a lot of my work too, is getting people to have an emotion, process it, but then quickly get back to a logical state. Because if I ask the audience this question, think back to a time when you made a really, really dumb decision. Where was your emotions at? They were very high, weren't they? You were very, very emotionally charged and you made a decision from that emotion. That's what happens when we don't process our emotions in a healthy way and get into a logical state so we can make an accurate decision. Emotions don't make accurate decisions. They make decisions based upon what I feel. And that's never a good equation. So we have to process our emotions to get back to a logical state, and writing is a phenomenal tool for that. Even when I keep talking about story versus truth, that's a writing exercise. Literally divide the paper into two. Left-hand side, write the story. On the right-hand side, write the truth. And then look at it and be like, oh, wow, like I am just really just making this a lot worse than it really is.
It would be interesting too to give that piece of paper to a different individual, no matter their story, right? I write my story, what happened to me, whatever. I give it to someone else, they read it. Maybe they would say, that's not so bad, dude.
One of the most powerful things that the audience can do right now, if they truly want to start making better decisions in their life, and this is so simple. Hey, I realize you're going through that. Let me ask you this. What advice would you give your best friend? Because you're separating yourself from the story. And look, we're all guilty of this. We all give our friends so much better advice than we give ourselves. Why? Because we're emotionally attached to our story and we make decisions based upon that emotion. But once we create the separation and we say, okay, if my friend was going through this situation, what would I tell them to do right now? And just simply do that.
Like you said earlier, though, with diet and exercise, people know the answer, don't they?
They do.
At the end of the day, people know the answer. Man, that's a tough roadblock for a lot of people. Well, I know what I'd tell my friend. I'd tell him to break up with that girl and move on. But it's my girlfriend and I can't do that. And it's me. And like, you have a tough job, bro. I'm not going to lie.
That's what I love about what I do. Somebody asked me, like, that conference I spoke at last weekend, I walked in the room and I got there early because I wanted to meet everybody before I spoke, just to kind of get a feel for the room, but also ask some questions about things I need to talk about on stage. And every single person I told that I'm in human capital, I help high performance teams, blah, blah, blah. Every single one of them, you should have seen the look on their face. Oh God, that's what you do? Like, how do you do that? And every single one of them had like a negative or bad taste in their mouth about human capital. But I'm like, look, I get that's your perspective of it because it's your human capital and they're driving your business and affecting your numbers, blah, blah, blah. But from my perspective, there is never a dull moment.
Right. Yeah.
There is never a boring day when you are working with the psychology of human beings. Like, there's never a problem that doesn't need to be solved. Like, if I ever have a client tell me, oh, I'm good, I'm like, you're full of shit. Like, there's never something in your life you don't need to be working on. Like, that's what I love about what I do is it's always fresh. It's always changing. And there's always another problem to solve. And look, I'm a male. This is the way our brains are wired. I love solving problems. If I don't have a problem to solve, I feel worthless. So being able to, yes, of course, solve my own problems, but to help others do that, man, like that's what makes me come alive. And I love the challenge of getting on a phone call or having a meeting and not knowing what the problem's going to be. I'm basically going in there and like, okay, what are we working on today?
It's funny you say that. That's what I actually love about my job being a broker. I kind of, in a weird way, enjoy when an agent comes to me, hey, we got this issue, this person's doing this, and they screwed up the contract, and here's a problem. Okay, now I get to put my hat on, and I get to solve that issue. Like, that's my bread and butter. I love that. Sometimes it turns out to be like, oh God, now I'm in too deep. Oh no, there's a problem. But no, I understand what you're saying. Problem solving is, I think, one way where anyone can feel good about themselves. If you solve problems in your own life, you're going to feel better about it. And that's why people love helping other people. That's why you want that advice from a best friend. And that's why that best friend wants to give you the advice, because that best friend wants to help you solve that problem.
Yeah, it's like when I talk to like early stage entrepreneurs and, you know, somebody that needs a mentor and they're scared to ask, I'm like, here, look, let me explain to you human psychology. Humans love feeling important. They love feeling needed. They love that ego boost that comes from somebody saying, man, look, I really respect you and I admire what you've done in your life, man. Can you like point me in the right direction? Like, we love that. And we love giving back. So never be scared to ask someone for help, because if somebody's been there, done that, they know what you've been through. And it literally fuels their ego to help you through that situation. Mm-hmm. Never be scared to ask for help.
No, a lot of people love being perceived as the expert.
100%.
And like we said in the beginning of the conversation, it's very important for a lot of successful people to give back. And one way to give back is helping younger other people through mentorship.
Yep.
You mentioned a little bit ago about male, right? I'm a male, and you know, for that reason, you mentioned like, what did you say? Something about like I have to accomplish things, something like that. Have you worked with female high-level executives? And then if you have, how does that differ from a male high-level executive CEO entrepreneur?
There are slight variations, and there's some hard psychology differences between men and women. And it has to do with our hormones and the way we're raised and so many different factors. But what I find really at the C-suite level and above is a lot of women, to be successful at that level, they have to step into their masculine energy and they have to take on masculine traits. Not to say that they're not feminine, but I'm saying this is what they have to do to be successful. Like, if we look at like personality traits of the successful, one of the biggest personality traits of successful people is disagreeableness. We don't go with the status quo. We don't just agree with what everyone says. We actually form our own opinions. In order to be a leader, you have to be disagreeable. So women have to step into that. And it's not, a lot of times it's not a conscious decision they're making. They just like, they went to business school, then they got the internship, then they got the management training, like they just something they kind of moved into. But women are a little bit more unilateral as far as they're a little bit more collective and everybody working together. Why can't we all just get along kind of thing? Where men are very much, here's the dominance hierarchy and here's where you fit in according to the value you bring. So there's some perspective stuff that's different, But a lot of times what I see is a lot of the same problems. Like a female successful person has to step into her masculine to go to work, just the same way a man does. A man has to take on his warrior king archetype to go to work and slay the dragon. A woman has to do it too.
Right.
But what I find with a lot of the successful women and men, look, men have this problem too. They just don't get called out on as much, is how does she turn it off at the end of the day?
Ooh, yeah.
In order to be as successful as she's been in her life, she's had to step into this masculine role and this masculine energy. But then how does she stop work, then step back into her feminine? That's where where I've seen a lot of the high-powered women get in trouble, is they get, down the road, and look, there's some crazy numbers about this, but they get down the road and they wonder like why their relationships aren't working, or why their husband no longer desires them and stuff like that. And there's actually a really bad stat right now, and I hate seeing it, but there's a large group of women that are getting into their 40s with no real relationship and no kids. And they're finding themselves deeply unsatisfied with life. And it's a growing number right now. And it's not like something they purposely did. They just got busy with work and they started drowning in priorities and just running that fast-paced life.
And they wake up in their 40, yeah.
Wake up in their 40 and like, oh man, like I might have missed my clock. Screw it, like I'm against the clock. I might have missed it. And like this deep sense of like unfulfillment and emptiness sets in. And, some of that's society and what we're teaching women, but like it all goes back to you're living with the pedal to the metal, just moving forward, making progress. Or are you living according to that story you want to tell one day? What do you want your life to look like? And live according to that, not what society's telling you, not what your parents are telling you. What do you want? And if you can't answer that question, you need to spend some time writing and thinking and figuring out that answer to that question.
Yeah. I think it's Women Empowerment Day or month. What did we see?
National Women's Day today.
National Women's Day today.
Yeah.
My family is full of women. I've got a bunch of aunts, my grandfathers. I have one grandfather. The rest are passed away. Growing up, it was always grandma, all the aunts. Most of my cousins are female. And a lot of them are bad bitches. You know what I mean? They're like, They kind of have that, like you mentioned, masculine energy. It's almost like using the word masculine energy sounds bad because it sounds like, oh, a woman can't have masculine energy, but that's false, right? That's completely false. It's almost just masculine energy, feminine energy is an exterior kind of construct, and any human being can step into either one of those roles and switch it on and switch it off. And what you're kind of preaching is both of them are important, and you need to know when to switch between the two depending on who you're interacting with. Like you mentioned, the boss bitch CEO can't come home and be the hard ass to her children. It's just not an effective way to live your life.
No, and she'll definitely run her husband off acting that way too.
Yeah, which happens a lot.
Yeah, that's why I don't say like men do this, women do this. That's why I call it masculine, feminine energy, because yes, we both have those energies. I actually had a conversation with my girlfriend early in our relationship. Like, look, here's the deal. In order to do what I do for a living, and I own my own business, and I'm out there slaying the dragon every day, not only do I have to be very masculine in running a business, but I'm also a coach, which requires me to deal with people's emotions and problems all day, and then step into my masculine energy and solve those problems for people. So there's a lot of times at the end of the day, I'm freaking exhausted. One of the things about masculine energy for women and men, it is a very, very energy intense state to be in. And a lot of times like burnout and, just even if you're getting sleep, not getting rest, comes from being in that masculine energy 24/7. I told my girlfriend this, like, hey, look, I understand that to create desire and polarity in the relationship, I need to be in my masculine because that makes you safe and secure in your feminine. And that polarity is what causes desire and, attractiveness to happen in a relationship. I understand that. And yeah, part of what I do is relationship coaching, but there's times where I'm going to be freaking exhausted and I don't want to be in my masculine energy. I need to rest and I need you to help me rest. Like I need you to do the feminine nurturing thing for me and fully allow me, because like one of the things about business owners and entrepreneurs and C-level and all these people I work with is, bro, we make decisions all day. And we make very, very risky, calculated decisions all day. I get tired of making decisions. I know as a man in a relationship, I have to do that. Like, I got to pick the restaurant. I got to pick this. I got to plan this. I got to do this. Sometimes I'm exhausted and I'm tired of making decisions. But that goes back to a whole communication piece with your.
I'm going to use that tonight. Babe, it's been a long day. You have to help me rest. You have to help me rest, please. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. You got to help me rest. You know, I love that. That's legit, man. Because then it puts it, you know, in her perspective, she's helping me. Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you so much for working hard for our baby boy, you know, coming soon in our relationship, and you're building a legacy and you're doing that. You know what? I will help you rest. So shifting your spouse's paradigm is important too, and getting them on board. What do you say to someone who has it all together? I got the vision, I got the why, I got it all, but the spouse is the problem. Sometimes it's not always, you can't always point the finger at yourself. Sometimes you do need to get out of that relationship. You do need to figure stuff out on that end.
Yeah, well, let's start by saying you picked the spouse. So it is ultimately your fault.
True.
You didn't do the right screen, just like hiring somebody. You didn't do the right interview process. And you didn't do the early, there's actually something in dating called shit testing. But you didn't do the right testing early on to find out if this person was your person. And that's like a whole process. But if you get into a situation, and I actually had a conversation with a client yesterday about this, what you have to do is that's really where you have to open communication. And part of that communication, and this is what a lot of people don't want to do, is, hey, look, this is the future that I want us to create. This is the path I believe is best for us. You're either going to get on board or you're not. And that's the conversation. Yes, you say it in a lot nicer terms than that, but that's the gist of the conversation is here's the future I want for us. And this is what I'm willing to do for us to have this. I need you to get on board and help me with this. But if you're always holding me back, and if you're always creating negativity and dissonance and all these other things, I'm going to be worthless to you. And we're not going to like each other. One of the things I tell men to do, and women should do this too, but more importantly for men, because of the way their psychology works, is, hey, bro, your priorities in life is faith, mission, then your relationship. And that faith and mission has to come 1 and 2. Because if you're not living according to your virtues and your faith and what you believe in, and if you're not fulfilling your mission, what do you think she's going to think about you?
Right.
She's not going to have any respect for you. She's going to be always bitching and complaining at you for all these stupid things that don't even matter, that aren't even really the problem. But you have to put it in that order. One of the things that I tell men is, look, bro, you've got to be the king that slays the dragon. And if you're the king that slays the dragon and taking care of the kingdom, the queen will come.
Right.
She'll come on that journey with you.
Yeah.
The problem is most spouses, especially in a male-female relationship with the wife not getting on board, the man's not doing what he needs to be doing. Mm-hmm. Why would she be on that train? Mm-hmm. You're not going anywhere. You're not being true to your word. You're not living in integrity. I don't even want to be a part of that. That's why this problem is happening.
Yeah. Yeah. I've dealt with kind of the other side of that in my life where, you know, part of what I do in real estate is a little bit of investing and house flipping, remodel, stuff like that. And I've been successful and made a good amount of money, certainly enough to support a life and a family and all that. The brokerage side of it is there's a lot of upfront work and it's certainly a people business. It's going to take a long time till that produces as much income as the other investment kind of development side of real estate.
Right.
So my wife is like, what the hell are you doing the broker side? You're just dealing with issues and dealing with people and it's not producing as much money as that other side of the business. I've had to kind of pitch to her look, here's the vision. Trust me. You're crazy. She's saying that kind of getting your spouse on board is very, very tricky.
So that goes back to how much does she trust you? And if you've always been a man of integrity, a man of your word is just concrete with her.
I've got her turned around. So
yeah, but it comes back to did you keep your promises you made to her as little as they could be? It could be taking the trash out. right? It could be painting the bathroom, like whatever it is. Did you keep the promises you made to her? Because every time you break that promise, that's just another red flag to her that now you're not a man of your word. So when you do try to sell her on the bigger vision, she's like, I don't know if I can trust that. He's proven me in the past that he breaks his word. So now he's trying to sell me this thing that's 10 times harder, and he expects me to believe him when I have evidence I can't believe him. And that's where a lot of people get in trouble. And it's on the male and female side. Like, that's why following through in your word is so important. Like that thing of integrity. Integrity is so important because not only is it a relationship with the outside person, it's also a relationship with yourself. And when you're always breaking lies to yourself, what's your confidence going to look like? What's your personal power going to look like? So keeping those promises you make to yourself and to your relationships, that's what builds trust. And that's what, like when you cast that vision, she's like, oh, he's always kept his word with me. He's going to do this. It may not be easy, but I'm on board because I know he's telling me the truth.
It definitely takes a particular woman or man, if the woman is the entrepreneur. If you are going to be married to or be in a relationship with an entrepreneur, that entrepreneur is going to have some crazy ideas.
Yeah.
He's going to want to execute some crazy visions. And it's like the classic movie, man, of the entrepreneur with this idea and this time it's going to pay off and the wife's rolling her eyes. You know what I mean? Like every business owner and entrepreneur kind of has to deal with that. Dad's crazy. Dad's doing this other thing. My husband's got this new idea. Man, you got to manage that. If you don't have your own intimate family behind you and your vision, you're in for a problem.
Yeah, you are. If you don't have, because we talked about the relationship is the most important thing in your life. So if you don't have that in a good standing, a good energy, it's going to carry over to everything else you're doing. So when we look at that from that perspective, yes, entrepreneurs, we do live a crazy life. I always have. I've always taken risk. I've definitely am prone to like, oh, that sounds like a good idea. Let's try that. But here's what your spouse needs: safety and security. Even if you're taking the risk, does your spouse know that she is safe and secure?
Right.
Like, even if, because like one of the things that I know about myself personally is if things go really, really bad, I'll be okay and I'm going to come back. I have before and I can do it again. Does your spouse know that same thing? Does she have that level of safety and security in you, knowing that whatever we go through, whatever happens to us, I know I'm going to be okay because he solves problems and he fixes things. And it might not always work out, but does she know that character trait in you? And that only comes from you proving it to her. And that's why, like, one of the things I always joke about with my girlfriend is like, look, that's what I do. I solve problems. Oh, we'll just do this, this, and this. That's what I do. I solve problems. I'm trying to instill that in her so she knows that what I do is solve problems. So anything that comes up in the future, like, we're good. I will find a way to solve this problem. And if I don't know how to do it, I will find someone else that understands this problem better than I do, and we will solve this problem together.
Beautiful, man. Well, listen, I think this camera's about to cut out. Hour and a half, perfect timing. You're the man, dude. I appreciate this so much. Where can people find you?
Bro, this has been a fantastic conversation. I've enjoyed this. Just at Robby D'Angelo on all the social medias. That's my website too. For any men out there that are looking for a tribe, go to missionundeniablemen.com. And that'll take you to our private group that we're forming right now of a bunch of men coming together in tribe that are supporting each other, motivating each other, and helping each other grow to, you know, I'm saying this right now, like, we're empowering each other to live legendary lives. And that's what we want to do.
Amazing. Thanks again, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, brother.
All right. Bye, everybody.